Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Thursday. This is Seattle Now. Big tech companies are powerful, influential, and often hard to hold accountable. But No Azure for Apartheid is trying to get Microsoft to make changes through protests, which have escalated recently. There's a lot to talk about. Geekwire reporter and co-founder Todd Bishop is here to discuss. But first, let's get you caught up. Here's some good transit news. Beginning Saturday, King County Metro plans to add bus routes and more frequent service to the east side. The new connections include Issaquah to Bellevue and Woodinville to Kirkland. Officials say the added service will improve transit to light rail stations on the east side. The long-awaited light rail connection between the east side and Seattle across I-90 is expected to open next April. The list of beach closures in the region keeps growing due to high bacteria levels. Magnuson, Pritchard Island, and Juanita beaches are now closed to swimming. That's in addition to Mount Baker, Luther Burbank, Idlewood, and Jean Coulon beaches that have been off limits to swimming for several days now. And the Washington State Fair opens tomorrow in Puyallup with food, rides, and live music. They're also doing an opening night drone and fireworks show on Friday. Kids get in free this Labor Day weekend. The fair is celebrating its 125th year and runs through September 21st. Check back for more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. Back in May, Geekwire co-founder Todd Bishop interviewed Microsoft President Brad Smith during one of the company's 50th anniversary events.
Yeah. The fact that we have every...
Brad Smith, you're a hypocrite. How dare you talk about nonprofits who are fueling a genocide in Palestine?
That was a protester from the group No Azure for Apartheid. It includes current and former Microsoft employees opposed to the company's work with Israel. The group has been leading demonstrations in recent weeks, but has been making noise for months. And this week, things escalated when they broke into Microsoft President Brad Smith's office. It was a dramatic moment the group streamed live on social media.
Microsoft, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide!
Todd Bishop has been following this story closely for months. He's a co-founder of Geekwire and host of the Geekwire podcast. Todd's here now to help unpack what each side is saying, why things have escalated, and what might come next. We talked yesterday. Hey, Todd, good to see you.
It's good to see you, Patricia.
Todd, were you there when protesters occupied the office of Microsoft President Brad Smith? Set the scene for listeners.
I'll tell you, I've covered Microsoft for more than 20 years. I have never seen anything like this. I was not there for the occupation. I was there for the aftermath. However, they did, of course, as things are these days, stream it live on Twitch. So we have a sense for exactly what happened inside. Somehow they got in. There were 7 of them inside Brad Smith's office. I've been in his office before to interview him, so I can confirm that was his office.
Yeah.
And they sat there, locked arms, resisted the initial security guards who came in, tried to block the door. They put a sign up in the window pointing out to the parking lot. They put a court summons, sort of a fake court summons in there. I mean, it was a big show, and clearly it got Microsoft's attention, and the Redmond police showed up and arrested all 7 of them.
Okay, sounds dramatic. As a reminder to listeners, the group is called No Azure for Apartheid. Todd, what is Azure, and what is the group accusing Microsoft of?
Azure is Microsoft's cloud computing platform. Increasingly, that also means artificial intelligence. The group is accusing Israel, really, and Microsoft in being complicit in the use of these technologies in a variety of ways for what the group calls human rights abuses against Palestinians in Gaza. Most recently, there was a very detailed investigative report by the Guardian newspaper and related publications that went into detail on how insiders allege that Israel's military is using Azure, this cloud computing platform for Microsoft, to store and facilitate the mass surveillance of Palestinians in Gaza.
You know, Todd, there's been very little movement politically in the Middle East, but the protests have escalated. Was that based on the article by The Guardian? What's going on?
A few different things. Yes, I do think that the article by The Guardian gave some fuel to these protesters and this protest group that's been active for a while. But keep in mind, this group has been active over the past, several months. They interrupted Microsoft's 50th anniversary event on the Redmond campus. And the typical approach in the past has been to get people from the group secretly into the audience under the guise that they're members of the audience, and then to stand up at a key moment and start protesting. And typically they would be just ushered out of the venue. So that was the past approach. And my sense is that they feel like the crisis is escalating in the Middle East. We're all seeing what's happening in Gaza, the reports of famine and longstanding issues. And I think it just reached a point where they felt that they needed to escalate to try and get the company's attention.
What has Microsoft said about the allegations of assisting in genocide?
They describe their contracts with Israel and the Israeli military as standard commercial agreements. And they say that any kind of usage along the lines of what's being alleged is in violation of their terms of service. They did an initial investigation this past spring, and they announced that they found no violations. Now, there was a big caveat there because Microsoft also acknowledged at the same time that they cannot know what people do with their technology on private servers or something that's like on-premises servers is what they call them. So not in the cloud that Microsoft controls, but on their own computer servers. And so there's kind of a blind spot that Microsoft has. And now with this latest Guardian report about the potential for Azure, for the cloud, to be used in the surveillance of Palestinians, Microsoft is acknowledging that there might be some accuracy to some elements of this report. And Brad Smith's point yesterday, when he reclaimed his office for a big press conference, one of the points he made was that this is something that they're looking into, and there may be some validity to some aspects of the Guardian's report.
Microsoft is certainly an interesting, powerful player in this, even though they directly may not control the technology that they're in contract with.
It really speaks to the power of big technology companies these days. And of course, Google and Amazon and others have come under similar scrutiny. But you have these large corporations, publicly traded, but still not subject to the kinds of sunshine laws or transparency that a governmental agency might be subject to, with immense power, almost like nation states unto themselves. And in that context, of course, shareholders can take action and introduce shareholder resolutions, and they might be able to upend the board and replace the CEO if they feel like things are not going in the right direction. But with something like this, where it's not really impacting the commercial aspect of what Microsoft does, this is not, at least yet, showing up on the bottom line of the company. You really wouldn't see that kind of action by shareholders in terms of trying to enact real reform. And so in the absence of that, I think you have something that's a little bit more animated in terms of these protests and the notion that they need to get the company's attention in some other way.
What has Microsoft said about No Azure for Apartheid's protests?
Brad Smith's point yesterday was that they don't need to do this.
When they're asked to leave and they refuse, that's not okay. That's why, for those 7 folks, the Redmond police literally had to take them out of the building.
In other words, the group, in Microsoft's opinion, does not need to go this far to get Microsoft's attention. Microsoft has its human rights principles, its AI ethics principles. And to Microsoft's credit, they were talking about ethics in AI years before any of these things came up, years before ChatGPT, just as one marker. So this is something that's been on the company's radar. Now, I'm sure there are those who would debate whether or not it's been lip service or not, but to Microsoft's credit, they have been talking at least and taking action to some extent on ethical issues related to AI and the cloud. I think No Azure for Apartheid's response, as I understand it, is they believe that if not for what they've been doing, Microsoft would not be taking even the actions that it has so far.
As we talked about, Microsoft is a big player here, but they're not the only big tech company supplying Israel. Why are they getting so much of the attention from protesters? What's the landscape here?
Well, this group, No Azure for Apartheid, is affiliated with and to some extent part of a larger national movement that has also taken somewhat similar or related actions against Google in particular. That's called No Tech for Apartheid. And I think part of what you're seeing here, though, is that there have been some very specific and repeated reports, not only from The Guardian, but from the Associated Press and others, about the role that Microsoft's technology is playing.
Where does Microsoft see itself in all of this? Just a company making good tech?
The takeaway I took from Brad Smith on that point yesterday was they're doing their best. That is sort of what he said. And I've got the direct quote here. He says,
We cannot do everything that we might wish to change the world, but we know our role. We're here to provide technology in a principled and ethical way.
and you can see Microsoft's a bit caught here. If truly they were going to try and go through the thought exercise of making sure their technology was only used in a principled and ethical way, you know, I think they probably have to stop providing technology. I mean, there's really no such thing as that. I think all they can do, from what I understand from their statements, is make sure that they are acting in what they perceive to be a principled and ethical way, and at least to the extent that they can, holding their customers to the same principles.
Yeah, it really leads to some very big, interesting, nuanced questions, Todd. How should people be thinking about this as Microsoft customers?
I think paying attention to this issue is probably the best thing you could do.
Yeah, I know you're paying attention. What's next for you? What are you looking out for as a reporter on this?
I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens when the company comes out with its response to the Guardian report, its full investigation into that, and not only its findings, but its proposed actions. And, you know, to me, the big question also is just, you know, how long are these protests going to go on? I mean, we've seen events interrupted for months and months, and it's clear that the group is just very determined, to its credit, to make things as painful as possible for Microsoft.
Yeah, very interesting. Thanks so much for your coverage, Geekwire co-founder Todd Bishop. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Today's episode was produced by Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team includes Andy Hurst, Vaughn Jones, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.